on the stream numbers. They more or less should amount to the same amount of people.
There will be a quiz at the end of the presentation, so
There will
please
be
pay
no
attention.
quiz. Mr. Force will
Oh,
not be
God,
having
no.
a quiz. Okay.
There will be a quiz.
There will be no
Everyone
quiz.
is
Administered by
watching.
Jabrangus.
All right. Everyone's watching? Great.
Yeah, all 15 because everyone but you.
Excellent. All right, guys. We'll make this really brief. Thank you for coming to our day one raid overview presented by Tidal Force. If you have any questions, there's going to be an open floor period a little bit later. This is a bit bigger than I was expecting in terms of turnout. I really appreciate you guys taking the time. We're going to get right into the nitty gritty of it all. First, let's go on to what we're going to be covering. We're going to be covering debuffs, buffs, resistance, damage, as seen through light and as weapons. And I can hear someone feverishly typing over top of me. Weapon selection, previous raid mechanics, theories, and guessing, as well as the logistics, which is really the most important takeaway for everybody, all right? So if anyone's having technical difficulties, just let us know. We can take a few seconds here to let you catch up. All right. Everybody good? Looks good? Okay. So what we have right now is the concept of a global debuff. We're all very familiar with it. We're basically currently understanding a few things about them, and we're going to go into them really briefly. Different things and abilities affect enemies differently. This number, this percentage, will stack with other things, but do not stack together. It's very simple. If you divinity a boss or tether a boss, they will never interact in a way that is beneficial to the team. Divinity, being a weapon that produces very low DPS, will in fact do less good for the team than maybe a tether might. We don't need to go into any specifics, but you do need to understand the very basics of a debuff and how they're global. That means that they affect everyone in a certain way, which increases the total team damage. We have the empowering buffs, and we're going to go over them really briefly here because I think the debuffs lack, any kind of nuance to them. It's either you're tethering or diving, or tethering with a Mobius Quiver or a Deadfall. When it comes to empowering buffs, we've got kind of categories. The most basic category at this point is going to be the Ward of Dawn, which is the bubble, or the Well of Radiance. We all are very confident and comfortable with those things. To increase our damage beyond that point, there are selective ways that will override other empowering buffs and be the stronger buff. The strongest being the Banner Shield. However, we all know that the Banner Shield does limit a person's ability to output damage. Think of it kind of like this. One person ups the damage of 40% ups the damage of 5 other members at 40%. However, they remove their fraction of the damage. If you compare the percentage of 40% to 35, you'll see the difference is 5%. So if you think about how much percent a single person contributes to the team, and then you figure out if it's worth it or not, that value will be around 16.67%, rounded up. So you'll see the difference between these two things are about 15%. And it becomes highly valuable that you have this invulnerability shield that and your teammates have to shoot through in order to get the 40%, but when they do, they'll do tons of damage. However, when we look at things like Boots of the Assembler, Lucent Blade, Argent Ordnance, the Sect of Insight mod, or even Lumina, this value no longer makes sense. And we'll have to go over this a little bit later because there's some serious issues that we went over, and we'll get to it a little later. But right now, you just need to know there's two basics. It's a buff and a debuff. There's Tether, and there's, Bubble Well, Banner Shield, or Boots of the Assembler, and we'll go from there. Just keep that in mind. These also do stack. So after a little bit of research, I was able to find these. We have the Font of Might, which gives you a temporary buff to damage. It only costs 1 this season for energy. It increases your damage if your subclass matches the weapon and you have the Elemental Well pickup. It's going to be a short period of time where you do get it. And we also have the Power of Rasputin, an old Warmind Cell mod that still works. It still stacks with Empowering Buff, Font of Might, and all global debuffs. It's a 10% increase in damage. However, it affects only those who have the mod equipped. If you do not have Power of Rasputin, this is off the table for your team. You can throw these Warmind cells at bosses, and it will give you 10% increase to damage, and it's not that hard to do. All right, we're going to talk about resistance versus light. This is a nice, neat little chart. Keep it really simple.
Strong.
What?
Smo, you need to mute yourself, buddy.
Oh, that was weird.
Tidal, could I
Yeah, what's up?
instead of light, it's power. That's all.
So this is exactly what we're going to be looking at in terms of how negative is negative. If you are not minus 20, you will be taking more than this much amount of damage. Everyone who is at light for the contest modifier, meaning minus 20, aka right when we start and the activity contest is 1530, if you're not 1530, you will take more than 187% damage. If you are 5 less than contest, you will take 220% damage as an increase of 40%. And God forbid if you're 10 below that, you will take 250% damage. An incredible number, and you will instantly die because of the nature of raids. All right, let's talk about ways to offset that damage, even at the 183. We can resist damage with the... Oh my God, someone mute him. Thank you. The resist buff is a thing that shows up on our screen that visually signifies a few different things. It signifies a window or amount of resist you're getting. Anytime you see resist times 1, it can be any value under 25. It doesn't mean it's 25. It doesn't mean it's 24. It means it could be 5. It could be 10% less damage. If you see resist times 2, you're in this window. Resist times 3, resist times 4, and resist times 5. Some of the ways that we can get resist in the game, and I don't really do too much on this, but these are most of it. Omnioculus will give you times 4 resist to a 50% minimum, right? It might be giving us more, it might be giving us less, but let's just stick with the basics of what we know. Stag will give you a 25% minimum. Will of Tenacity will give you 50% minimum. Whisper of Change, I believe, is resist times 1. Protective Light is now a resist times 1. Renewal Grass is a new exotic for hunters that while in a Dustfield Grenade, enemies output less damage and you take less damage. Together, it's not quite easy to calculate what the resist is. There's testing still being done, but just so you know, that's always an option. Your ACD Feedback Fence reduces incoming melee damage by 33% to 67%. If you're fighting hordes and hordes of thralls that are just meleeing the crap out of you, this might be one of the few things that kind of gives you a pretty easy out. Controverse Hold while charging the Void Grenade. This is great for warlocks who are already kind of like looking for their next favorite exotic. Will reduce your incoming damage for 20% while charging the grenade. Stronghold is a Titan exotic that is used for swords that will reduce incoming damage by 80%. There's a new perk in the game that's on select weapons that are Season of the Risen weapons. That's called Land Tank. Land Tank grants you 1 tier of resilience. We're going to be going into resilience, but as a Titan, when you get kills with Land Tank, you are going to potentially be getting recharge on your barricade faster and have more health because of the fact you're using a weapon with Land Tank. You get a 5% damage resist on top of that stacks with Land Tank up to 3 stacks, lasting an initial 4 seconds between kills, and then we can eventually get a buff granting it 10 seconds between kills, just to keep it up. I don't want you guys to focus on the tiny green numbers here, but this is the kind of output of what the difference of these different resists have. Concussive Dampener, Melee, Sniper Resist. You see that they're all very similar. You've got 24.8% rounded to about 25, 24%, 24%. We've got, if there's 2 of the same buff, 2 concussive dampeners, we've got 40. 2 of the same melee resist would be 40%, and 2 of the sniper resist, 40%. With elemental resistance, we see the exact same thing happening. It starts with 1 of either at 25% and double of the same at 40%. You'll see that across the both of all 3 resistances. Now, if you start mixing and matching, you'll see, and you did the right combination of damage, if you're sniped with a weapon that is solar damage affinitied, you will get an extra 3% damage reduction. So if you can get the right combination, you're going to be getting a great amount of resistance with these buffs. These can also stack with Artificer armor that can roll like the double elemental resist on the what would it be on the what is that called? It's a special mod slot it's added on to the end of. Anyways, we'll move on. We've got overload rounds and disruption applied. So this also works on many enemies. When you use overload rounds, you're applying a 43% reduction to incoming damage to your entire team. So if you think of Osteostriga with overload rounds, if everything worked properly, you would basically be reducing all incoming damage to your team by 50%. This is how resilience works in the game. You've got the biggest number. I'm sorry, the biggest number here is 100 resilience. And you'll see how much health that gives you. Think of it not in health, but rather in damage reduction or resistance. With the max being 100 at about 11.48 damage percent reduction. And that also can go overboard with Land Tank. Land Tank can allow you to have 11 resilience. It's incredible. Yeah, just to get you an idea of where the value is. You see that right around 7 and 6 is where you start getting like really chunky values. Protective light, this really isn't relevant. The 50% reduction doesn't work anymore. This is now 10% after you take damage. Wrist runner, this is arc damage, will reduce incoming damage by 50%. Arc only. Controverse hold, there's your 20% with evidence. Here's your 80% with evidence. Here's Warmind Protection. It's a Warmind cell mod. 50% reduction in damage when enemies are near a Warmind cell, if I'm not mistaken. Or you're near the Warmind cell. I can't remember. All right, let's look at your actual damage dealt. We've got weapons will be 20 under activity. This was tested in Prophecy when our light was 1060, and I think it still stands. Could be wrong. I'm pretty sure I'm right. So we've got 1040. Your weapon will be doing 87.29%. Now, for those of you who may go down to, let's say, 5 less, you don't quite make it to the max amount of light for the finalized activity. You'll notice you'll lose about 9% total output damage, and for DPS checks, that's might be too tight if you have too many members too low. And then at 10 under, you see that you go down to 69 percent. And at that point, you're rolling dice. I don't know if there's too many groups that can pull that off, but it makes a big difference. What you'll notice is that I guess the best way to describe it is that weapons are the only thing that change damage. You'll notice that the weapons are at light. They kind of stay around here, but if the weapon's 1060, the even 20 under, right? If the weapon is 1060 and you're 1040, the weapon does 100% damage. So just weapons decide damage. Let's go over a few different damage strategies, and I'll be giving you proper breakdowns. I know it seems like it's going to be much longer, but it won't be, I promise. We've got rocket launchers and Gallahorn with Catalyst. Without Catalyst, Gallahorn is Garbo. Okay, if you don't have the Catalyst for Gallahorn, you have to get it or you can't use it. And I highly recommend only one person uses it. A lot of people have talked about this. I don't need to proliferate this information. However, Sleeper Simulant is still top damage for any precision spot, hands down, and you're going to see some numbers to prove that. Whisper of the Worm with Catalyst is possibly the best DPS / total DPS in the game. If you don't have it, I would get it. It has more damage than Sleeper, but is not better DPS than Sleeper. It is comparable. It is close. Let's talk about Wither Horde. Only one Wither Horde in the team is highly efficient at doing damage, similar to how we used to Anarchy the boss and do damage. For whatever reason, you shoot the boss with the Blight. The Blight no longer can be stacked. However, the pool underneath the boss can be. So you could have 6 Wither Hordes and one person ticks the boss. However, everyone's Wither Horde will be doing less damage because they can't both hit the boss directly and do the pool under. Parasite is going to be good. That is all. We're going to be looking at auto-loading rockets and Izanagis. Let's talk briefly about Divinity and the weakening effect. Everyone knows this. I'll just double check that we do. If you apply a weaken effect, which I can go back to the slide, you will negate divinity and totally ruin it. So you can't be using grenades and you can't be using Void 2.0 with a rift that sends it out on the boss, because you will reduce your team's damage at an incredible amount. It's not just half, it's like more than half. The divinity also creates a precision cage, so even if there was a boss who doesn't have a precision modifier, you're set as long as you have a div. You're sacrificing a position for a person. If you can make it work, you can make it work. If div is out of the question, if they've already figured for all this good stuff about precision, non-precision, creating a cage and div, we have to use tether and we have to go to rocket launchers. Or even sleeper is like arguably just as good. Tractor and weaken effects do stack. They work just fine. As long as there's no div, you can use all your grenades and all your special neat little Void 3.0 abilities. And we're going to take a small differentiation between total damage versus DPS. I'm not going to show you total damage because the reserves plays a big part in it, but ultimately this will give you a good idea of what we're looking at here. We have DPS without Wolfpack rounds, all right? So this is important because there might be a time when Wolfpack rounds just isn't cutting it, and you'll see why. So we look at total DPS. Each of these, let's start with Whisper is a good one to just focus on. That orange bar. Do you see how it doesn't? You see all these like steps? How it like those are reloads basically. It's like you did the damage, then you reloaded. You did the damage, and then you reloaded. Whisper doesn't reload, and because it doesn't reload, it just never stops doing this damage. And you see this total damage point over here. That's where it ends. If we look at Sleeper Simulant, you notice that it kind of starts off a little lower than a lot of these, but starts to really rise and maintains its peak around the 4-second mark. It kind of drops off again and peaks again around the 11-second mark. And let's look at the breakdown of what those numbers mean. So Sleeper Simulant and damage per second is top, Whisper is second, Ascendancy is this, just as like a baseline. This is Galahorn. Now this is Hothead with Explosive Light. You'll see it's top DPS. Hothead with Clown Cartridge, close. Hothead with Vorpal, not close. Wolfpack rounds plus Izanagi's Burden. Now this is like kind of cool. You'll see this is a clusterfuck. Good luck figuring it out. More importantly, Sleeper Simulant is still top. It's crazy. It makes no sense, but it's just how it is. We're so getting baited into this rocket DPS meta, it's ridiculous. Whisper of the Worm, still really great. Code Duello with Frenzy, which does work on Wolfpack rounds, it makes them stronger, is still great. Code Duello with Lasting Impression has terrible DPS because of the periods of time it takes for the weapon to basically do the damage, right? What you'll notice is Code Duello with Frenzy is the red line. We'll see its end here. This is where there's no more shots left. If we compare that to Code Duello with Lasting Impression, this is where no more shots are left. A greater damage total. However, the time it took to get there compared to the function of the graph is some of the worst DPS because of it. If we look at Ascendancy, it's quite in line near many parts, in fact, ahead of Frenzy. Interesting. We've got Galahorn. It's just as the baseline is the blue, just in the mix. We have Lasting Impression plus Izanagi's. And what we'll see again is it's far below Sleeper in terms of damage. Where's the blue line here? Sorry.
I've got a quick question just for clarification.
Yeah, sure.
On Ascendancy, is that assuming you have Explosive Light for every single shot?
It's only for the max you can stack normally. So it's like 6
times 6. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not every shot. It's just as many shots as you can properly stack the buff in advance. But you would get more DPS if you just had one orb on the ground waiting for you to pick up.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're sitting in a well dealing damage, assumedly, if you're doing AoE damage, you're also killing ads. So there is the potential for orb generation to happen during that. So you could maintain Explosive Light. But
exactly.
That's very situational. I was just curious. Thanks.
We've got Lasting Impression with auto loading plus Izanagi's, and this is our DPS. It's far below many of these other combinations, including Galahorn. But what we do see about this one is it out damages Whisper of the Worm in total damage. So if you had the longest DPS phase on Earth, you would be remiss to not use these two together. We look at Frenzy and Izanagi's. We have a kind of a better pairing of that drop-off point. You get way better value from the Wolfpack rounds with the auto-loading and the Izanagi's. but you do have sort of quite a disparity in total damage, and it gets to almost the same point. It gets to, I believe, the same point a little quicker than Whisper.
I have a question as well.
Sure.
On the oh, I totally just blanked. On the
Yep.
no, fuck. I was gonna ask a question. It just totally lost it. I'm so sorry. I hope I remember.
Think about it. Think about it again. I got to keep going. Everyone's time is being used, so I have to keep going. This is really important. You don't be over confused. All you need to know is that basically different weapon archetypes scale against bosses differently depending on the category they're in. So let's see if this is a good example. These are the scaling. Maybe this one will be a better. So yeah, you'll see that something like, yeah, what's the question?
On the Whisper of the Worm, was that proccing breathing box for all of them?
For the ringing
the
nail
Whisper of
or
the Worm.
white nail, yeah, that's the box.
Once you
breathing.
proc the Whisper Catalyst, unless you miss a precision shot, you have whispered breathing the entire time.
Oh,
I thought they took that away. Okay.
No, they made it way better. This is current, and the one thing is, if you miss a shot, that whisper falls apart. That's why Sleeper is such a good pick.
You can't miss it.
Yeah, don't reload. So what I'm trying to show off here is that there's different damages depending on, right? Let's say we were out in the open, we're against Carl, right? Carl is a boss on Nessus. You don't worry about that. What you do see is that there are instances where Xenophage it kind of moves up a position because it's a different archetype than the linear fusions. The linear fusions have a minus 19% damage buff. Xenophage only has a minus 14.1 in line with, and this is only against Taniks. Every boss is shaped uniquely. So you might be trying out a certain strat that works really well, but theoretically, shouldn't another weapon do just as well? Well, armor scaling, depending on the actual type of weapon, like you see here that First In Last Out has the most amount of armor damage against Taniks, yet still promotes really good damage. If we go back one more, these are some, I don't think they're total damages. Yeah, whatever, I'll have to remove this slide later. It doesn't, yeah, you see sniper rifles and how much damage they do and how that relates to Carl. And this is basically just justifying boss testing. Don't worry about that. We've been through a lot of raids in Destiny, and I don't even know all of them. But I thought I'd get you guys start thinking about this going forward. Think about the mechanics that you've seen, and think about them as often as you can. We've had limited revives, deep sight. We've seen crystals. We always have damage phases. There's augments. We've seen mini bosses. There's tethering, not like tethering is in our damage tether, but like connecting tethers together. There's something like the Eye of Riven. An enemy drops a buff that gives us superpowers that are really important for the rest of the raid. We've pollinated flowers and shot lasers at crystals. We've pressed buttons. We've ran through hoops. There's been wind-like effects. We've seen key enemies. We've deposited nukes. There's raid mods. We've been teleported to separate instances. The list is pretty incredible. What I would like to talk about are things that are really relevant, I think, kind of more generally to things. We'll start on the left with kind of the boss mechanics.
Can I jump in for one thing? I think that we're going to probably see those things that we've been seeing in the six man activity. Those little things you got to shoot, and that are also
the little pyramid thingies.
I'm sure we're going to see those things.
Excellent. Well, let's go right here. So one thing that's really important that everyone understands, who maybe have never felt a real enraged in their life, but enraged means if you didn't do enough damage, you're just going to wipe. That's it. If you didn't bring enough damage, you didn't do it quick enough, you didn't do it in time, you're not being efficient, you're slow to get there, you're going to wipe. We understand that there's phases. Not everything has to happen right away. It doesn't have to be the best run ever to be the run that gets you the end. There's two types of mechanics when it comes to phases and rages, okay? Sometimes we need to do it flawlessly. A single death will wreck the run, and you know it. A flawed run is when you accidentally lose a guy, you lose a res, but you can continue the encounter. There are many mechanics that require you to do them flawlessly, and there are many mechanics that do have mercy built in with allowing for flaws. All right, we also remember that many bosses have shields, and we always get tools to break them. We also know that we are often divided up, and through dividing, we're able to conquer the encounter. Bosses have unique and selective debuffs, buffs, and detains. They can remove players completely from the encounter unless we do something to stop them from possibly dying or wiping the entire raid from it. We search, we deliver, and we destroy. We trade and we juggle. These are all things that are key and throughout many mechanics, and keep that in mind. And it comes naturally. It's almost not even worth articulating, but there you go. When it comes to callouts, a lot of you guys are going to be building your own callouts for the first time. Make them simple, numbers and letters. Simplify them when you can. You're going to be tired. You're going to be cranky. You're going to be pretty molding. So the best thing to do is just try to make things that are simple and everybody gets behind. If someone has a better idea, I mean, don't take a bad idea. There are no such thing as bad ideas in a day one. You need to get comfortable coordinating during split ups. This was incredibly difficult for teams who were doing Last Wish on Riven. We can kind of do it pretty easily, but the stress and the anxiety and all the voices, you'd be surprised how a lot of your skills might leave you in a day one. You talk between attempts. Try not to talk about what's going on as it's happening, unless it's like the freshest of runs. You want to just let everything settle and then talk and wait and start up again. When you're trying to solve things, you want to eliminate possibilities. You want to stay positive and try to just get a little further each time. You want to stay focused. Play it, don't guess it, right? I would advise most teams to just go back in. Don't get too distracted with any particular idea or strategy. It's better that you put the time into the encounter. Most of the players will learn faster and perform better by simply engaging with the content. One thing that this is really hard to understand, but I've experienced it a lot, and this is probably my best advice to every single one of you who I know will do great and is already a great player. There is always more you can do. There isn't a single time where your job is done. You can always look to a teammate. Fucking your head's on a swivel. You're killing more things. You're finding ways to optimize for your team's sake. It's not just do the job. It's do the best fucking version of the job you could possibly conceive of. Play to your strengths and switch when you are not playing strong. All right. So we're going to open up the floor in just a second. I would like to point out many hunters will be invis. It might be bad for your team, guys. Keep that in mind, that if you're pulling aggro away from you and pushing it onto others, you might be creating a disaster. Bungie might have already planned for it. I don't know. The top damage super. I know everyone cares. It's Star Eater scales with if the boss has a special 2x precision crit spot, you're going to be able to do an incredible amount of damage to the boss. You put on Star Eater scales, you get a bunch of orbs for Feasts of Light ×8, and then you shoot a bunch of headshots, getting precision kills, and then you shoot the boss on the head 3 times perfectly. You do 500,000 damage by yourself. It's really tough to pull off. Now, the one major thing that I figured out like last night, and I feel so bad about this, is Boots of the Assembler. The only way to make it work, if people step in and out of the well, not the person with the boots. They don't even get the buff. It almost doesn't matter. Everybody has to find a way to get the buff outside of the well before going back into it to get to safety. It's
Just
a really... sorry, what? Yeah, just strafe.
Just strafe.
Just go back and forwards at the back of the well, lol. And like literally, I can understand if people abandon the strategy and go for Banner Shield, but there is a possibility that this may become integral to putting a team who isn't optimized for damage with all their weapons, loadouts, and everything. And this is huge. It's a huge number, guys. Like, it's like worth it. If you can work on this with your team, trying to get Boots of the Assembler to work, every minute you put into that will pay off in the raid. If you don't have time for it, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's on the table. I don't think it's necessary. I think I can take a page out of Sweatcicle book and be like, chill, guys. It's too much. All right. So I'm going to open the floor. I don't know how to do this well, but yeah, if anyone wanted to talk about anything, now's a good time. I know there was a lot of information. Maybe you had you have a question now. Feel free. open floor. We're like just it's pure chat, but try to be civil.
I got a quick question.
You okay? And I heard
Can
someone else put that down as second. Yeah, random guy, what's up?
can you read the first line of this theories page?
Invis might be as bad. Okay, random guy, go fuck yourself. Next question.
Hold on. Sorry, I was doing some.
Or
I
quick
think
next
that's
anything.
articulated
yeah, it was
wonderfully.
trash. So I was just gonna basically, you didn't put any numbers on the whole, like Banner Shield losing the damage versus all 6 people with the 25% damage buff. So I actually did the numbers earlier. It's about a 0.94% or a 9.4%. It decrease if you use Banner Shield over.
That's not right. It's actually
Is it
about
not?
It's about 900%.
Is it? Whoa! Wait, what?
Yeah. Sorry, 100, 900, 100%, about 100%. You
So
do
you do
about
double the damage?
yeah, you do double the damage. Yeah. See, you do this number. I'll tell you how to do the math. Take any number. Do 1.3.
Oh, I didn't do the debuffs. I didn't
and
do
then
the debuffs.
do the debuffs. That's where you see
I
the
forgot it. That's where I
significant
fucked up.
margin.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I fucked up.
All right.
Cool.
Next one.
But still, it's a big.
Yeah, I know it is a big number. It's a big number.
I was just
But-
you didn't say it earlier. I was just trying to like, hey, this is like
Yeah,
there's no
yeah.
reason to use Banner Shield to get some extra damage and lose an entire person. Like people have tried to like tell me that before. I'm like, why would you ever think that's a good idea?
Yeah, the thing is the invuln is what I think offers the bet. Like, if you can keep people alive, you do way more damage than Boots of the Assembler dead. You know what I mean? That's kind of like
Yeah,
the
I understand.
thinking.
So I mean,
There
it's just very situational if there's a boss attack during a damage phase.
Yeah, this is pretty rare these days. They like to make sure we get to shoot our gun after we earn a very hard DPS phase. Yeah, like I know if people were talking about like deep sight might be a part of the raid, like you channel with the buff and then you can see things no one else can see. Something we see a lot. People have been theorizing, hey, there's Scorn in the raid, think about that for sure. Loosen Hive. Let's hope we see him. If we don't, I'd be disappointed, but I don't know. I don't make the game. Anyone else wanted to add anything to the open floor? I know it's a big chat and might be kind of scary, but yeah, that was a good time.
Did we know the exact damage resistance for that one page?
The exact damage resistance for the one page. You mean?
Oh, for the damage resist slide. I
Yeah.
know the Whisper of Chains.
Yeah.
That is a 40% reduction. But the other
Whisper of
ones,
Chains is 40, so it should be resist times 4, right?
No, wouldn't it be resist times 3?
yes. Like what are those?
Because you said
Yeah.
40 indicated.
You're right. You're
if
right.
Times 4 was a 50% minimum.
Yeah, it's 50 margin. Yeah, you're right. It'd be times 3. So is it a times 3? Because like I didn't have time to get to all this stuff. I just remembered what I could, and some of it might be wrong. I was just getting people to think about resist, and what I really wanted.
Protective Light is a resist 2.
Is it
No,
a-
protective light is now a resist times 1. They nerfed it, and it's
It
only
used
like
to be. It used to be a times 4.
4.
Yeah, it used to be a 50% damage reduction, but now it is. I believe it's just a straight
10%.
20%.
Yeah,
no,
it's 20.
no 10%. Hot garbage.
Yeah, it's 10. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Right.
They clarified it very specifically in the TWAB, and I double checked.
Yeah,
A lot of this
Will
stuff-
and Tenacity is
was
much better
an
now.
Overly heavy nerf of it. I think 25% would have been good.
Yeah,
but
I
that's
think-
just my personal opinion.
Most of this information has been diligently triple checked, and like I'll tell you when I didn't. Like Whisper of Chains, I'm like, I saw it times 1 when I was looking at a video, and I was like, whatever. So if someone has stasis on, they're getting less damage. I think the main thing is like when you're bringing in like actual exotics, right, is where you're making a real decision, as opposed to I get less damage when I'm near the crystals. And with Renewal Grass, Whisper of Change is a must-have, and like that effect together, it compounds tremendously. It's very, very valuable.
Yeah, and with Well of Tenacity, that very much it not only upped its viability. It sucks it's only 5 seconds, but you could very easily just do elemental time dilation and throw another mod on there to increase the duration so that it's more than just 5 seconds.
I have tried to do that before. It only gets up to like 10 seconds. It's really not that great in my opinion, but it still could be viable since.
Yeah, but I mean, when you
Protective Light
procced
isn't created
Protective
anymore.
Light, it only lasted for
Was it 4
maybe
seconds?
10 seconds
It was
at
about.
the most.
It was like 50 seconds, I think.
It was not
Yeah.
15 seconds. It didn't last that long.
I would give it left. Well, I think that was if you got
Well,
like 4
that was
stacks
then.
of
Come on, guys.
play.
Let's focus on the raid. Let's focus on. I don't know. I could discuss this stuff all day. I love this stuff, but let's just keep it focused on what we do have and what is present.
Yep.
Anyone else?
After going over the DPS numbers, I then immediately started like shuffling things around from my character to my vault. Like, okay, these are the weapons that I want to have on me for DPS attempts.
It's almost disappointing to see it. I'll be honest. We invest like this is incredible how much like we're investing. Total damage, right? If you can get all the rockets off, like this is a deceptive chart. Like we look at where Sleeper falls off, right? This is the line. That's where Sleeper falls off. This is
Where's
where
Red
Cold Duello-
Herring at?
Where's Red Herring? This was pre-Red Herring. Red Herring
Oh,
would have
wait.
similar. Red Herring would have similar DPS to Code Duello.
Isn't the way that chart works, the higher up it is, the more damage it does? That's what I
Yes.
was
This
understanding.
is-
the
yeah.
vertical part of the scale
No,
is damage, the horizontal part is time.
Yeah, the time. Yeah, if it goes out farther, that means it takes more time to do that damage.
Oh,
More damage
sorry.
is higher up. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah, it's just how long it takes for that damage to come out, and then this is the highest number. Sorry.
Yeah,
I was
but
looking
that
at it
also
wrong.
gives us a helpful window into looking at like, okay, what happens if we have like a really short damage phase versus like a really long one? What's going to be kind of the more
Yeah.
optimal loadout? Because if we have more time, we're going to want to go for those higher damage options like
And this
Whisper,
is
like Sleeper.
without Lament, and this is without Parasite, and this is like there's a few things here that are missing, right? For that 9-second window or that
Yep.
4-second. You imagine where Lament would be, or Parasite would be at this exact moment. Would be something like up in the here, I think.
With Parasite, you'd get like one massive spike and then
Or
smaller spikes as
300,000.
it goes on.
Here. It depends on the boss too. This is all
Yeah.
against a certain boss, so the 300,000, I guess, would be scaled to something like
Yeah,
I'm
it's
gonna
like
guess,
it's a limited data set, but
about
like,
tier.
I think as far as like total damage goes, if you used loader mods and whatnot, Parasite could probably be
And then
top damage overall. But
one more question.
go ahead.
No, sorry. The Code Duello Frenzy. Why is that different than the other Frenzy on the bottom right?
What are you doing?
Because that's Code Duello by itself. And the bottom right one is
Well,
with his Inaugis.
Wait,
I
okay.
trust you.
And is that also using impact casings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, think of it like if none of them have it, then none of them have it. If all of them have it, it's all the same relative. Like the only reason impact casing matters is total damage. Like it's all relative to rockets in general. Like if you don't have it, then your rocket isn't as good as one that does, but it doesn't mean that it's doing that much less total DPS. It's going to be doing like fractional less, and it wouldn't be much better than any of your other options. Yeah, DPS is certainly one of the things that its speed is like a very huge factor about how we decide DPS and where those windows fall off. And this guy who made this, I wish I could have. He is hopefully going to be posting kind of a finalized day one prep video, but he's a very small channel with like maybe 2,000 subscribers. I can't believe I stumbled upon this at this exact time, and he does incredible work. And none of this would most of the shit would have been kind of all bullshit if it wasn't for a lot of the effort that he's put into the game. Yeah. I'm gonna go on a limb. I'm gonna just keep pushing it. And if you guys we have a few days. Talk to me. Talk to anyone. We're just gonna move on to the really important stuff for everybody. Hopefully, we didn't lose too many people. I heard a few people have to leave. That's okay. So let's talk about the kind of expectations. Okay, guys. So breaks are mandatory. You should be arranging breaks and scheduling them in advance, and preferably as soon as possible, like right now, right with your teams. Like just schedule some break time. Give your team an idea. Let them plan. Let people have the functional life of a human while doing this amazing once a year hopefully kind of thing. Make sure you have water, drink it. You have to make sure that you have your
Besides
food
random
arranged.
guy.
Yeah, unless you're a random guy, you're barred from water. It's the opposite of our rules here. Make sure you get as much sleep as you can, especially those who are going to be pushing and those who struggle with whatever sleep that they do get. It is probably the number one limiting factor of anyone's attempt to be successful on a day one, more so than a lot of other things. When you're in there, ask for help. Your friends, they're your teammates, they're your friends, they're your companions. don't be afraid to make suggestions, but when you do, be constructive, or just don't say anything. You know, if you're not being actually constructive, you are just taking up airtime, just general time, people's patience. You're putting possibly a mark on your back as like, I don't like that guy. You want to be constantly sharing, just always. I saw this, you saw that, right? And that's why you ask questions when you wipe. As soon as you wipe, why'd you wipe? What happened? What, you know, what was it? What did I do different? What did you different? Why isn't it working how we expected? Like, just keep probing, investigate constantly. Really important, and what I really expect everybody and anyone who kind of breaks this rule, like, we'll hear about it and we'll remember it. I don't think we can necessarily do that much about it unless it's like a sincerely out of hand problem. But like, those of you, just like, be respectful, don't judge, and don't play the blame game. Okay, like, it's no one's fault. No one knows what's going on. Even if someone knows what's going on, they can forget.
Everybody show up and do their best.
This is
Case in
new.
point, I forgot
It's-
I switched off of Chaos Reach during day 1 Atheon and plunged myself into the abyss with Well.
I remembered
man.
it. That was really funny.
Oh man,
Everybody show
Shit
up
like
and do their
that is
best.
gonna happen. Expect it.
it's gonna be challenging for you and your entire team. When you mess up, you just say my bad, and everybody just understands, and you move on. No single wipe should be the point of a fucking global investigation, okay? And an inquisition. Don't single someone out for causing a team wipe. Like I said, you're all on the same team. It's about cooperation, not competition. And one thing that's going to be an issue with all of us being here, and we've seen it before, is just don't brag about your teams. Don't like jump in someone's chat. Be like, we just beat it. Be like, you know, if you give a fuck about everyone else's progress, like, offer insight. Like, hey, if you guys are struggling, like we just beat it. Don't be like, we just beat it. You know, there's two ways of going about it, right? Every team's going to move at their own pace. They'll say, no, thank you. And you can just move on and just be so proud of yourself. I know the first thing is we want to tell people when we accomplish something we're proud of. And everyone gives a fuck about everybody doing well here. And it's just how it can come off to a team that's been struggling. Like, that gets in your head. They beat that 2 hours ago. They beat that 3 hours ago. They beat that 4 hours ago. They beat that 13 hours ago. How are we still here? You know, Steezy knows that better than anybody. I know that, like, it gets in my head just comparing myself to streamers sometimes. It's sick. What the fuck is, like, do you have a death wish? Do you really want to just, like, hate yourself? Anyways, that's pretty much it, guys. Make sure to plan breaks, drink water, get lots of sleep, and thanks for coming to my presentation.
Joke's on you. I already hate myself.
Thanks, Tidal. That was great. That was
Thank you
dope,
for
man.
that,
Good work, buddy.
Thank you.
Presentation.
Yeah,
That
thanks
was
Thanks for putting
no,
that
well
together,
said,
Tidal.
man.
Thank you.
A lot of good
Golf
shit.
clap.
Golf clap. Yay.
Loud
Good.
claps for Tidal.
Thank you so much. All right, so none of you have to sit through that ever